So welcome to AI Friday. Today we're going to tackle a question a lot of people are asking right now. That's which generative AI platform is the best? And you've probably heard of ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. And as we're going to discuss, there's several others. But understanding how they work, what they're good at, can be a little bit confusing. So today we're going to break that down. First, we'll talk about the generative AI, what it actually is, how it works, and then we'll compare the three major generative AI platforms that currently are leading in the market. So to help me unpack the details, I'm joined here with Matt. How you going?
Yeah, good mate, good mate. Thanks, Nigel, for getting me in. It's looking forward to the discussion. So
Yeah. So you spend a lot of time experimenting with these tools and helping your clients, I suppose, deliver outcomes. So can you help us with look at the strengths, weaknesses, some of the costs, capabilities for each of those platforms? So that would be useful, I think, for everyone to reduce the complexity that's out there.
yeah, 100%, 100%. It's probably worth touching just first, maybe on what ChatGPT and what these things are, LLMs and so forth.
Yep.
If you want to have a chat about that, really briefly, just for everyone to get an understanding, to make sure we're all on the same page, and then I'll dig into each of the products separately.
Yeah, why don't you do that, a bit of a overview there first, and then we can get into it.
Yeah, so I guess to me there's three layers of AI right now. There's chat, ChatGPT. There's just those level one where you got a text box, you type into it, gives you a response, sort of back and forth, and then that's more of the generative traditional approach. Sort of level two would be where you've got document creation. You're actually doing more than one thing. You're using parts of agents, even though you might not know that you're using agents. It's actually using
Yeah.
them behind the scenes, creating documents for you. You're copying those workflows between things. You might be creating content for a website, and you're copying and pasting, that content between what you've generated and the website itself. Or maybe you're doing things like, business case documents for Word documents and so forth. And obviously just as an outcome. I'd say it's probably like quite useful. Most people are sort of doing that. And then I guess finally would be level three, where you've got agentic AI, where the AI is actually taking action from what you're doing. Now, that comes with its own risks. You've got big sort of players in the market now, like an OpenClaw. It takes over your entire computer, and you let it go hell for leather. But then you've got more controlled versions of that with things like
Yeah.
Claude Cowork and Copilot and so forth. So these are the kind of tools that I would consider level three at the moment,
Mm.
and it can really do end-to-end project management, office tasks, data manipulation tasks, those kind of things, really, really effectively.
Yeah, that's a good intro. So today, I guess, just to keep the scope in play, we'll look at three major generative AI platforms. So ChatGPT, which is obviously got a lot of popularity when it became free and was used a lot by a lot of people out there. So developed, and that's obviously developed by OpenAI. Claude. So we'll look into the Claude. That's the advantages and the disadvantages as well, and then Gemini, which is in the Google space as well. So all those three platforms have they use the large language models, but they have different strengths, ecosystems, and approaches that you use. So Matt, can you sort of unpack each of those three for us?
Yeah, so look, we'll start with ChatGPT. Everyone's heard of it. It's really where it all started from a popularity perspective. Yeah, sure, there was machine learning and everything before, even OpenAI, but OpenAI really set the scene for what we know as AI today, and what most people refer to as AI, which is the LLMs, the large language models.
Yep.
I think it's great for chatting. Doesn't really stand out these days. Interestingly, it was the market leader for a number of years. And over that time, I guess it's probably well, I feel anyway, these are my personal opinions, doesn't really stand out in any particular area anymore. It tends to have, it works well with image generation. It can code. It's kind of like a generalist. It can chat, but it has a lot of hallmarks of the sameness. Like it has a if this then that kind of sentence structures, a lot of M dashes. It feels like very tries to help all the time, even though
Yeah.
you're asking for it to be critical. ChatGPT does have an embedding model. So what that means is you can use it alongside retrieval augmented generation or RAG processes. And what that really means is it's just fancy words of saying you can build more targeted output from the AI using your own data. So you can grab your own PDFs, like warranty documents or standard operating procedures. You can encode them, embed them into a vector database, and then retrieve them as part of your chat, as part of the context for the retrieval. So yeah, that's probably where ChatGPT I think is still quite useful. It's got a good embedding model there, and because it is a generalist, it can sort of do everything, but not necessarily any one particular thing that well.
Yeah.
That's how I see ChatGPT today.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So that's a good explanation. Let's move on to Claude.
Yeah, so Claude by Anthropic. Essentially, that one, I reckon this is the current heavy hitter. This
Yeah.
is the thing that's really amazing for creative. It's amazing for code, things like document creation, websites, vibe coding in an app. The Opus model for has a very large token context window. So you got a million tokens you can use, which means, and a token really is just basically saying, hey, sort of three or four or five characters. It's a part of a word. That's what a token is. And obviously, the bigger that amount of tokens, the more context it can take in and handle as an input.
Mm.
Opus is extremely good at like thinking through problems and really connecting complex themes. You can put Claude through some serious PowerPoint presentations, business strategy documents. Really good creative writing. It's great for working with like IDE environments like VS Code or a command line even.
Yep.
It works great with that. I'm really impressed with Anthropic's implementation with Claude and co-work even, the ability to take over and use your computer. It can click the mouse and keyboard, so to speak.
Yep.
And it does it more or less in a controlled way. So unlike something like a bit loose, like an open claw, you've got open source project and you've just given it admin access to everything.
Yep.
Uh, Claude Cowork, it's a much more controlled. You can give it access to certain folders. It prompts you whenever you need to do anything. Are you sure this is
Yeah.
what action you want to take? It's definitely got a more business friendly
Yeah.
take on AI. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, and that's something that all AI tools are getting better at. Is at the enterprise level when you really pay for the enterprise servicing, what you're really paying for is the control layer and the governance around your own data.
Yeah, and I guess you want to select a one particular tool as your main primary, I guess, and take it to the end. I guess one of the questions I had was, what about if you invested a lot of time in a particular tool? Can that be transferred to another AI tool?
Yeah, 100%. So all of these tools have a memory as it's collecting information about you. And you can just write a prompt in any of these tools and say, hey, I want to export this data to another AI product. Give me a master prompt. Give me everything about me that you know about me. And I'll actually go and detail that sort of master prompt out. Take that, paste it into the next tool as your starting place, and then that will be the transfer point. So it's quite
Yep.
easy to move between them. You don't have to worry. You feel like you're stuck in
That's
ChatGPT because
that's
you've used it
that's
for
a good
five
point.
years.
Yeah,
So
yeah, because people have a fair bit of investment into all these projects and all this data and their templates and everything else. So if you can move that across, it's pretty ideal. So that's a good explanation. I guess the third one that we're looking at in this analysis is Gemini, which has that Google environment, ecosystem like your Gmail, your Docs, and your productivity tools. So how does Gemini sort of fit compared to the other two, Claude and ChatGPT?
yeah, look, you probably already hit the nail on the head, to be brutally honest, which is it really shines with Google products.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the same sort of context window as your primary models, your million tokens. It's got very good multimodal capability. So think about text, images, audio, video. It can handle a lot of those sources and inputs very, very well. I'd say it's a little bit less consistent with its output. Probably not as strong as Claude as an example on complex reasoning and some of the coding challenges. But if you're on a Google workspace or you use Google products a lot, I think it's the best by far. And you've also got to think about these tools about what data sets do they have access to that it can use as a primary source for training. So Google, it owns YouTube, so a lot of the YouTube information, the way it can consume that information, very good for queries around finding your favorite creators and asking questions of some of those things. So yeah, I'd say for Google services, it's probably a top tier choice there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you started to answer this question already that I was thinking about, as far as you've got some good tools, you've got some good use cases, but which is the one that you would prefer and that you would recommend to your clients?
Yeah, it definitely comes down to what you want to use them for.
Mm,
Yeah, if you do a graphic design or you do a lot of imagery, then probably Google and Nano Banana's model amazing. But for me personally, it's definitely Claude without a doubt. I think it's got too much. Um, it's too strong in the creative document creation. It's great at building apps. You still got to be understand the limits of where it is, the security vulnerabilities you might be creating, or the QA processes you need to think about. But when you have at least a little bit of experience, um, Claude is phenomenal, and I think the market's showing that based on the sheer amount of revenue generation that's been occurring in the last sort of 3 months from
yeah,
Anthropic versus very flat or decreasing on the OpenAI
yeah.
and sort of things. So I definitely think that Claude is a standout for me.
And I guess you just sort of touched on it. What are some of the other tools that are coming through that we'll see in the marketplace as things move and evolve extremely quickly, as we've seen?
Yeah, for smaller organizations or maybe people who are a bit more risk tolerant, OpenClaw's definitely taking a huge amount of market presence and usage in the marketplace.
Yep.
I think it's not really a tool for enterprise. It's definitely hasn't got the governance controls. It doesn't have the PI or the security embedment in there. You've really got to think through what you're doing. You're literally giving an AI an open access to a computer, and you've got a key, and off it goes.
Yep.
So you've got to treat it as an employee, but maybe even an employee who really you can't trust with your information. So you have to really restrict what it can do. If you don't want to end up in, have a few issues around data or privacy or those sorts of concerns. Some other things that I think to look out for are Manus. Manus is a basically another tool you can use. It's part of the Meta, and it's extremely good at that agentic workflow. You can
Okay.
ask it, hey, analyze my ads. Go have a look at where I'm not performing, and take it to the nth degree. And I think again, it's trained on a data set that has access to all of Meta's people information and everything around the Facebook and Instagram, you know, capabilities that they have. So you've got to sort of put that in context, and I think that's why it's so strong in that space. But that's definitely one to look for, and I'd say if you haven't tried it, I'd definitely go try it. And then there's probably some more niche things. So it depends on if you're a Power BI developer. There's a thing called PBIR CLI, a command line interface that allows you to work with like Power BI, allows you to build models and reports and so forth, all with Claude, which is a good one. You've got a lot of CLIs now coming out. So I guess previously, we as humans needed visual tools to function, whereas these tools are really either MCP or Model Context Protocol
Yep.
based, which is basically a way that you're saying, hey, you've got access to this tool or this API. This is how the LLM can talk to that tool through MCP. Or you've got a command line interface, which is much more, AI or computer centric. So maybe not as human useful
No.
unless you're a programmer, but far more powerful when an AI is actually working through a command line than an
Mm.
actual user interface. So they're the sort of things, and I think you'll see more and more of the command line interface, the MCP servers coming through. That's really where agentic's needed. Agentic AI needs these things to work. So that's where you're seeing a big uplift. All these products are getting Microsoft Fabric, as an example, has a CLI, has had it for 10, 12 months. And that's basically how the market's sort of taking it too.
Mm. Well, that's excellent. I'll leave some details next to the video where you can catch Matt and get his services as well. But thanks for the AI Friday video today, and see you next time.
Thanks, Nigel. Appreciate it.